Hey everyone, welcome back to Dungeon Brew. Today I have two more mini games for you, so stick around.
Welcome to Dungeon Brew.
Hey everyone, we're going to be talking about two more mini games today. These are gambling games specifically designed for like a tavern or a casino or, even just something that is being played by locals, that type of thing. And the PDF of this, again, is on the Patreon, link in the description below. You can go and download that for free. So I'm going to get right into it. I do have two games to go over, and neither one of them is particularly complicated, but I just kind of want to make sure that I cover a few basic things about them and the way that I kind of see them running. So before I get into the actual games, I just want to talk a little bit about why. Well, I mean, they're called Games of the God King, which seems like a really weird name for games. The names are originating from a campaign that I ran years ago for my players, in which they were going into the city of Belgrade, where there was a casino known as Vertigen's Gaming House, and ran by a man named Vertigen. And these were some of the games that they were able to play, along with Win Play Show, which is a game that I showed last week. So, but basically what this is the city of Belgrade is ruled by somebody known as the Golden King or the God King, and he is an immortal who has been ruling over the city for years and years and years. So this is just kind of something that is built into the lore of that particular setting, and you're free to rename these games or set them up in a way that makes sense for your particular setting, but that's kind of the origin there, and that's where they're coming from. If you're interested in more details about that, the same post on Patreon that is talking about the rules or gives you the rules, you can find a little bit of lore information for that particular setting. Okay, so the first game is God King's Favor, which is a dice game where players wager on the total of their dice pool compared to other players' dice pools. So they're going to be rolling 5 dice, and whoever has the most at the end of those 5 dice is going to win. But basically, the way that this works is not so simple as just rolling all 5 dice and then trying to bet against the total. It is actually a series of betting rounds. So there's usually going to be some kind of ante or some kind of blind that needs to be paid at the start, and afterwards, each time a die is rolled before the next die is cast, there is a betting round. So you would start with a d12 and then bet, and then roll a d10, and then bet, and so on and so forth until you go all the way through the d8, the d6, and the d4. After the d4, you have your final round of betting before everybody reveals their dice, and when you reveal your dice, whoever has the highest total wins, minus the rake, and the rake is basically just what the house takes, particularly in something like a casino or maybe a tavern that allows this type of play to take place. But the 5 to 10% is taken off the total of the pot given to the house, and then the rest is kept by the winner. If there happens to be a tie, then the pot is split. So all in all, it's a pretty straightforward game. It's the kind of thing that I think that you would be able to throw into almost any tavern or any casino or any game really, without too much difficulty, since it's a fairly easy one to understand and there's not a whole lot going on with it. It does require a little bit of strategy, understanding when you should bow out to preserve the money that you have and not just continuing to bet all the way through, particularly if your initial die rolls are not particularly high. Okay, so let's get into the second game. The second game is the Gambit of the God King, and this is a dice game where players are wagering on the value of their dice hand compared to other players' dice hand, which sounds very similar to God King's Favor, except that this is more of a poker-like game. We're still using the same set of dice, d12 through d4. The difference is that we're aiming for hand rankings, and most of these are going to align with poker. So you have common things like 4 of a kind, full house, straights, 3 of a kind, 1 pair, 2 pair. So all of those types of things are pretty similar. You may notice already, if you're particularly savvy, that something like a d4 and a d12 probably isn't going to line up all the time, which means that for some of these, getting something like a full house or a straight or 3 of a kind or 4 of a kind, you're never really going to get above a certain number because of the type of dice that you're rolling, which makes some of those difficult to actually attain. The interesting thing is that because we're rolling 5 dice, it's also possible to get 5 of a kind. Obviously, a 5 of a kind can never get higher than a 4. There are also a couple of other hands that I've included into this. One is high die, so this would just basically be the equivalent of like a high card, whoever rolls the highest die if nobody has anything better. And then the rank that is right above that is known as the crown die. So the crown die is if you roll a maximum value on a dice. So a 4 on a d4, a 6 on a d6. If you're rolling a crown die, whoever has the highest crown die beats out the high die if it's also not a crown. And then the highest hand ranking in the game is rolling all crowns, which is basically a straight 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 displayed on the respective dice. So the crown die mechanic is also something that enters into breaking ties and that type of thing as well. So if possible, so you might have something like a 4 of a kind or a 5 of a kind or whatever it is, or even a straight. Whoever has the highest crown die in their hand would win that pot over someone else. So you might have something like a straight, and if the highest crown die for one hand is a 4 and the highest crown die for another one is an 8, the person who rolled an 8 is actually going to win that hand. And then from there, it works exactly like God King's Favor, just in the sense that whoever wins takes the pot minus the rake, again 5 to 10% that goes to the house. And then if there is no crown die or there is no way of differentiating something like a tie, then you would split the pot if there's 2 people who have the same hand. All right, that's it for today. Relatively short. Like I said, these are really straightforward, simple games that I think most people would be able to pick up and use relatively easily. I do think that there is a little bit of strategy going into each one of these games in a little bit different way. As far as God King's Favor, I think that that's a little bit easier for most players to be able to pick up. There's not as many complex rules and that type of thing, but if you have players in your game who enjoy a poker-like simulation, I think Gambit of the God King works pretty well for that as well. And again, if you have not already, please check out the link in the description below to go download a version or the versions of these games for your own table. And if you have not already, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Those things help the channel to grow. And I'll see you guys next week.
Judge and Brew.